Control your mind? Oh, now that's the real circus act, isn't it? Everyone's out here trying to fix their lives, fix the world, fix each other, but the chaos isn't out there. It's upstairs, that loud, twitchy, never shutting up little voice that rewinds pain like it's your favorite movie. You know the one. The voice that tells you you're not enough right after it told you to try harder. It lies, it whispers, it shouts. And the real punchline, you believe it. You wake up, and before your feet even touch the ground, it starts. That little commentator in your skull already running its mouth. You didn't do enough yesterday. You're falling behind. Don't screw this up today. Charming way to start the morning, isn't it? And what's worse, you listen. You don't question it. You just accept it. As if every passing thought deserves a throne in your kingdom. As if your mind earned the right to be king. When really it's just a jester in a fancy suit, talking fast and hoping you never ask for proof. But that's the problem. You don't ask. Because somewhere along the way you were trained to believe every thought you have is true. That if your mind says it, it must be wise. Logical. Sensible. What a joke. You forget the mind was shaped in the fire of your fears, sculpted by the hands of everyone who doubted you, abandoned you, ridiculed you, or loved you wrong. You think your thoughts are pure, they're leftovers, echoes, ghosts. And you walk around like they're gospel. The trick, the real trick, is realizing your mind is more like a courtroom than a compass. And every thought, just a witness. Some of them lie, some exaggerate. Some are still stuck in trauma 5 years ago, screaming warnings that don't belong in the present. But you're the judge. You get to decide what stays, what gets thrown out, and what's just noise dressed up like truth. See, you'll never control your mind by force. That's cute, but it doesn't work. You don't silence a liar by yelling louder. You expose it. You hold it up to the light and say, prove it. You question every narrative like it's trying to sell you something. Because it is. It's selling you fear in the name of safety. Doubt in the name of humility. Confusion in the name of being realistic. And you're buying it on autopilot. Swiping your piece like a credit card. People don't go crazy because they have too many thoughts. They go crazy because they believe them all. They let their minds play God and then wonder why their world feels like hell. But here's the thing, once you start noticing the thoughts instead of becoming them, something cracks. You begin to see the gaps. You notice the loop. You catch the lie mid-sentence before it sinks its claws into your chest. And that is the beginning of power. Because now you're not just reacting, you're watching. Now you're not trapped in the story, you're holding the pen. You start hearing your mind like a desperate actor trying to audition for a role that's already been cast. You're not good enough, nope, not buying it, you're too late, says who? You'll never change. Cute, heard that one before. Try harder. And the more you push back, the more you reclaim, but you've got to stay awake. Because the mind doesn't like to be questioned. It'll throw tantrums. It'll whisper old wounds when you're tired. It'll dress up insecurity like intuition. It'll make you feel like you're the crazy one for not panicking. That's how it keeps its grip. But when you stop falling for the drama, the mind starts to lose its power. It sulks. It retreats. And something quieter starts to rise underneath all the noise. Something still. Something true. That voice isn't loud. It doesn't shout over the madness. It waits. It doesn't need to prove anything. It just is. And when you finally hear it, when you realize the mind is the storm but you are the sky, it all flips. You don't need every thought to be kind. You just need to stop believing the cruel ones without trial. That's where freedom starts. Not when your mind gets quiet, but when you stop mistaking it for truth repetition. That's the magician's favorite trick. The illusionist inside your head doesn't pull rabbits from hats, oh no. It pulls chaos from memory, pain from history, doubt from yesterday. Again and again and again. Not because it's true, but because it's familiar. You think the mind is wise, it's just well trained. It's a parrot in a burning house, repeating what it was taught while everything crumbles. See, the mind doesn't care if something is helpful. It only cares if it's known. And when something's been whispered into your ears long enough by parents, teachers, enemies, even your sachars, it becomes a loop, an anthem, a soundtrack, and soon you dance to it without knowing the song. I'm not smart enough. This always happens to me. People like me don't win. These thoughts weren't born in truth. They were rehearsed into power. And now they run the show, but here's the joke: your mind will believe whatever you feed it. Lie to it with enough conviction, and it will serve that lie with loyalty. Tell it every day that the world is against you, and it'll find proof on every street corner. Tell it you're broken, and it'll drag you into relationships, jobs, and decisions that make sure you stay that way. Why? Because it wants to be right. The mind doesn't want peace. It wants consistency. So it matches the outside to the garbage on the inside just to stay in sync. You ever wonder why change feels like war? It's not the new behavior that's hard, it's the inner riot when the pattern gets challenged. The brain screams, it resists. It calls the unfamiliar unsafe, even if the familiar is pure destruction. You try something new and that little voice flares up: this isn't you. You'll fail. Go back. And if you've heard it enough, you obey not because it makes sense, but because it's loud. Repetition builds walls, and those walls become your comfort zone, even if they're made of barbed wire. But here's the twist: the same way repetition trains the lie, it can also break the curse. Feed the mind a new message daily, relentlessly, unapologetically, and it will start to glitch. I'm not my past. I create peace, not chaos. I belong where I stand. Say it, even if you don't feel it. Especially when you don't feel it, because repetition doesn't ask for evidence. It just asks for consistency. And when you show up with new input long enough, the output changes without warning. The mind learns through rhythm, not revelation. It's not the one-time aha moment that rewires your system. It's the daily decision to drown out the old narrative with something stronger, something truer, not louder, truer. But the key is, you can't wait until you feel like it. The mind doesn't respond to emotion, it responds to habit. You train it like a dog that used to bite you. You show up every day, you repeat the truth until it sounds less like a script and more like your actual voice the lie came up. Oh, it'll hiss. It'll laugh in your face. It'll show you the highlight reel of every time you failed just to get you to quit. And you'll be tempted to listen because it sounds familiar. But don't confuse familiarity with reality. The record playing in your head might have been handed down like a family curse, but guess what? You get to scratch the vinyl. You get to flip the track. And no, it doesn't feel natural. Not at first. Saying something new to yourself feels fake, feels forced, feels ridiculous. That's normal. That's proof the old programming is panicking. The system's losing control, and it'll do anything to make you stop. But that's where you lean in harder. Repeat it anyway. When the voice inside says this is pointless, say it again. When your chest tightens, say it again. You're not trying to convince the world, you're reconditioning the walls of your own head, because in the end, your mind isn't loyal to truth. It's loyal to repetition. So if you want to change your reality, don't wait for a miracle. Start with the echo. Feed your thoughts like firewood into a better flame. Not once. Not twice, but daily, mercilessly, until the lie doesn't recognize you anymore. Aha, the triggers. Tiny landmines with your name carved into them. Someone says the wrong word. Someone looks at you the wrong way. Someone breathes in your direction, and boom, you're no longer here. You're back there, back in that moment you never processed, reliving a nightmare you thought was buried. But it's not. It's just sleeping with one eye open, waiting for the next chance to steal your peace. You call it overreacting. You call it being sensitive. But it's not that. It's the past wearing new clothes. And it fits too well, doesn't it? That's because pain doesn't disappear, it hides. It lodges itself deep in your wiring and waits for a familiar scent, a familiar scene, a familiar tone. Then it pounces. You thought you were free, but no, you're still in the loop. Because until you deal with it, the trigger owns you. See, your mind is an archivist. It keeps receipts, catalogs, dates, files. It remembers the exact moment. Someone made you feel small, made you feel powerless, made you feel like nothing. And it swears to never let it happen again. But instead of healing, it builds armor. It turns every disagreement into war, every correction into criticism, every silence into abandonment. It doesn't see the world as it is, it sees it as it was when you got hurt, so now you react. Not to what's in front of you, but to what's behind it. A shadow, a memory, a ghost, that person who made a joke about you. They weren't trying to destroy you, but your body doesn't know that. Your nervous system hears the laughter and thinks you're 13 again, standing in a room full of wolves, trying to hide your shaking hands. That's the trap triggers blur time. They convince you the past is happening again. Right now you can't think clearly when you're bleeding from invisible wounds. You lash out, shut down, explode, escape. Whatever your flavor of defense may be. And afterward, regret, shame, confusion. Why did I do that, you ask? Because the part of you that reacted doesn't live in the present. It lives in the trauma. And it got activated like a motion sensor in a dark hallway, the irony. Your reaction isn't the problem, it's the teacher. That sting in your gut, that rage in your chest, that urge to run or scream or shut people out, it's not weakness. It's a flare, a siren. It's trying to show you exactly where the pain still lives. You want to control your mind? Start there. Pay attention to what makes you snap, what makes you spiral, what makes your hands sweat and your voice crack. That's not the enemy. That's the access point, but most people don't want to look that close. They'd rather label themselves broken, blame other people, hide behind pride, because healing takes work, and pain ironically feels safe when it's all you've known. So they keep dancing with their triggers like it's a routine. Predictable, miserable, familiar. They build lives around avoiding discomfort instead of understanding it. And the cost, intimacy, clarity, freedom, because here's the deal, a trigger only controls you when it stays unconscious. Drag it into the light and it loses its grip. When you can say, this isn't about this moment, it's about that one, you break the spell. You step out of the loop. You gain choice, and choice is power. Not the fake kind. Not the kind that makes you louder, angrier, harder. The real kind. The kind that lets you stay soft when your ego screams to fight. The kind that lets you breathe instead of run. The mind tries to protect you from pain by avoiding the wound. But that's not protection, it's paralysis. Healing requires discomfort. Requires looking at the exact thing you've tried to outrun. And that's terrifying. But it's also the only way to be free. Not numb. Not armored. Free. And freedom isn't peace without problems, it's power without panic, so go ahead. Watch what makes your skin crawl, your jaw clench, your eyes water. Don't flinch. Lean in. That's where your control begins. Not in pretending to be above it. Not in forcing yourself to stay calm while a storm brews inside. No, it starts when you realize the storm isn't now, it's just thunder from long ago, still echoing because no one ever told it to shut up. You ever watch someone get punched in leg? Not because it didn't hurt, but because they saw it coming. That's the trick, isn't it? Observation. That little sliver of awareness between what hits you and how you hit back. Most people, they don't even see it. Something happens, boom, and they're already reacting. Like puppets. Strings pulled by memories, instincts, old scars they never stitched up. But when you observe, oh, now the game changes, see, the mind is like a stage, and your thoughts, oh, they love the spotlight. They dress up in emotion, they throw tantrums, they whisper lies, and you're the audience clapping at the wrong lines, crying at rehearsed scenes. You don't even realize you're not choosing your reactions, you're just playing a part that was written for you long before you understood the script. Now imagine this. Instead of acting, you watch. You let the thought speak, but you don't shake its hand. You feel the fire in your chest, but you don't throw anything. You become the one in the back row, arms crossed, tilting your head like, hey, interesting performance. That's observation. That's where power starts. not in control like a tyrant, but in curiosity like a scientist poking the edges of madness. You walk into a room and someone ignores you. Instantly, the mind starts its parade. They don't like me, I don't belong, here we go again. And without missing a beat, you feel small, angry, defensive. But if you pause just a flicker of space, you catch it. You see the thought, and you ask, is that mine? Or is that my past talking again? Most won't even get that far. They'll be too busy building a story out of dust, but not you. Because once you start watching, you start choosing. That's the uncomfortable truth no one wants to hear. You're not your thoughts. You're the one who notices them. You're not your pain. You're the one who feels it. You're not your reaction. You're the one who decides if it deserves to live. And that gap, that tiny second between stimulus and response, that's where freedom hides. It's quiet there, almost too quiet, and most people are terrified of silence because silence makes them listen. And oh, what ugly truth silence loves to whisper. You ever try sitting still and doing nothing? Not scrolling, not fidgeting, not planning, just being. That's where the real war begins. That's when the thoughts get loud. That's when the masks fall off. Because stillness is a mirror and most people crack under their own reflection. But you start to see how the mind plays its games. You see how it loops, how it panics, how it convinces you something's wrong just to keep you chasing comfort. But the chase never ends. Observation is the only way out, and don't think observation is passive. No, it's the most dangerous move you can make. Because when you start watching, you stop obeying. And when you stop obeying, you become unpredictable. To your enemies. To your trauma, to your own damn patterns. That scares people. It scares you. Because the mind wants control, and control hates being watched. It prefers you on autopilot, punching shadows, crying over echoes, reacting like clockwork. But when you observe, you break the clock. There's something viciously calm about someone who watches instead of reacts. They don't yell. They don't flinch. They don't play the game. They just see. And in seeing, they expose the whole con, the manipulation, the illusion of urgency, the lie that says every thought deserves a response. It doesn't. Most thoughts are just noise pretending to be news. You start observing long enough, and the patterns show themselves. The timing, the triggers, the bait. It all becomes obvious, like a magician fumbling his trick in slow motion. You start to predict it, smile at it, move past it. Because now you're not caught in the storm, you're the one watching the clouds form before they even show up. That's when the power gets dangerous. Because you're no longer a slave to reaction. You're no longer spinning because someone spun you. You're the still point, the watcher, the witness. And nothing rattles a world built on chaos more than someone who's mastered the art of not taking the bait. Discipline. Oh, what an ugly little word. People hear it and think of rules, control, punishment, chains, basically, but it's not about that. Not really. Discipline isn't the villain they paint it to be. It's not the barking sergeant in your head screaming orders at 5 a.m. It's not gritting your teeth and pushing through until your veins pop. Nah, that's just theater. Discipline, the real kind, the kind they don't advertise, is more like persuasion, redirection. A soft, twisted art form that turns chaos into choreography. See, your mind, it doesn't want to be controlled. It wants novelty, comfort, sugar, noise, dopamine, oh, lots of dopamine. It wants to sit in a dark room watching flickering lights while time melts into forgotten goals. It wants to do what feels good now and damn the consequences. And if you try to fight that, it fights back harder. It throws tantrums. It rationalizes. It makes the worst ideas sound genius. You can't beat that with brute force. You outsmart it. The trick is knowing your mind is like a misbehaving child with a genius IQ. You don't yell. You don't beg. You redirect. You feed it structure disguised as freedom. You give it choices, but not too many. You let it run wild inside a fence you built when it wasn't looking. Discipline is when you say yes, you can rest after the work. It's when you tell the mind, sure, we'll scroll after we write the chapter. And suddenly it listens, because you're not fighting it. You're handling it. People think discipline is about motivation. But motivation is a fraud. It's that flaky friend who hypes you up on Monday and ghosts you by Thursday. Motivation shows up when the weather's nice, when the likes are. Rolling in when the path is paved. But discipline shows up when you're crawling through glass. When no one's watching. When your chest feels empty and your limbs feel heavy and all your dreams feel like expensive jokes. That's when it walks in quietly with no applause, just a nod, just get up. We're not done yet. Discipline is what stays when everything else leaves. The fire dies, the crowd disappears, the energy fades, and there it is standing in the ruins with its sleeves rolled up. It doesn't care how you feel, it cares about what you promised. And oh, how the mind hates that, because the mind wants to feel right. Discipline wants to do right. The two rarely agree. That's why most people quit. Not because they're weak. Because they never learned how to negotiate with themselves. You ever see someone keep going when they have every excuse to stop? Not because they're enjoying it. Not because it's easy. But because they decided to. That's the scary part. That decisions can be stronger than emotion. That you can actually become the kind of person who acts first and doubts later. But it doesn't happen overnight. It's built brick by brick, repetition, routine. Not sexy, not glamorous, but unbreakable. And here's the wild part, discipline is freedom. That they didn't teach you that one. Everyone wants freedom, right? Freedom to sleep in, to eat what they want, to avoid the hard stuff. But that kind of freedom, that's a cage. The more you chase comfort, the smaller your world becomes. Real freedom is waking up and knowing you can do hard things. That your habits aren't controlling you, you're controlling them. That your future isn't being held hostage by your mood. Discipline doesn't scream. It whispers. Again, that's all. When you fall, when you fail, when you fumble, it doesn't yell. It doesn't shame you. It just taps your shoulder and says again, it's a quiet monster. And if you feed it, train it, trust it, it becomes your greatest ally. Because when storms hit, then motivation won't save you. Passion won't save you. People won't save you. Discipline will drag your half-dead body out of the fire and make you walk anyway. It's not about being perfect. It's not about being robotic. It's about showing up when it counts. And sometimes, most times, it counts when you feel like it doesn't. Discipline sees through the lies your emotions tell you. It sees the trap of later. It knows tomorrow is just code for never, so it pushes. It nudges. It dares you to be consistent in a world that rewards chaos. Because being steady, reliable, boring in